So I'll share with you.
There is no power. That's the same too. Just turned it.
No, if there were. That's the one. That's one. This is one of the.
Que vamos a hacer 20 minutos. Dilo en inglés.
It's not.
Ahí está bien, corta.
No, it's not.
Que no podemos tener todo el tiempo.
To the camera? Hello everyone.
No, here.
Oh yes, sorry. Hi everyone, welcome. We're going to start in about 20 minutes. People are still arriving. There's a bit of a protest here, so people are taking some time. So we will start in about 20 minutes from now. Hola a todos, bienvenidos. Nada más para decirles que estamos aquí en la recepción del evento. En unos más o menos 20 minutos vamos a empezar. Hay gente que todavía está llegando y hay un poco de atraso por las protestas, pero en 20 minutitos comenzamos. Gracias.
Because this thing needs it. Say to everyone that I can see because my phone light. No, because the one's going to say a lot of things and tell him that I cannot see
Yeah, now I remember this. Well, you know, I come here and obviously on the ground, that's no, that's it. Don't just be nice about it. No. The other partners I like exist a little Portuguese.
Oh yeah, okay.
But that's not the language, yes. You know, I mean the Greeks. Anyway, it's nice.
Yeah, it's only because salty fish, Scandinavian.
Yeah, too much of it. Sorry. Oh, you're okay. I know this was covered until recently, but I think it was foggy. And so they decided that it's going to look cooler like this. So I recommend so that they have a carpet to make the okay.
Hi. Hi.
There, yes. And it's
I know. I have an idea.
it's very hard to figure they do rent spaces. So
But as far as I remember, the price will be a little bit and for the next yes. You were not to change it for 05.
I have to stay here. So just go upstairs. It's like 30 seconds away.
If I remember
Cuando empecé la cosa,
like 3 o'clock. I saw the agenda. No, I thought it was like between.
But I think we can give them until 20. And half two is the official stuff, but I think we give them. Hi again, everyone. As I was saying, there's a bit of traffic, so we're going to give participants an extra 10 minutes just to let people arrive. Nada más para recordarles que como estamos con el tema de tránsito acá, la gente está demorando un poco en llegar, pero en 10 minutos vamos a empezar. Muchas gracias.
This is the one that was
Sorry, Joaquin and Juan are not here. Juan and Joaquin has both. So he's over there. Joaquin is here. You don't know it returning, of course. When we travel, like he does this. It gets you tired. Sorry. We're giving an extra 10 minutes.
it's not going. It's demasiado.
Bueno, yo igual esto lo voy a estar
Yeah,
moviendo,
because I
así
think
que-
it's.
Es que no entiendo este trip.
When I was with the other attractions, it was just the worst.
Vamos hasta 5 minutos más y empezamos. I think the farmers have something right over the side. Most products are livestock, you don't think of it, but now they think of
Yeah, exactly. Because he was here. My phone. Has an option. At some point you have a break. Because I
tu Wherever you go. Ah, el micrófono. Perfecto.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today on Friday. My name is Giselle Roche-Lever, and I am the manager of FPEI, that is the Foundation for the Promotion of Entrepreneurial Initiatives. We are based at university, and basically FPEI was founded by the university and the Malta Business Bureau. So we're basically all here today for the session on addressing Malta's skill gap through education. Education obviously being the key word here. What are the opportunities? What are the challenges? Thank you very much to Martin, who organized this event, and I'm sure it's going to be very interesting. We've got a great panel lineup of speakers. And obviously we do encourage you to participate with any questions or any observations that you may have. We want this to be engaging because obviously I think you're here because you obviously have an opinion on the topic at hand. Just a little bit about FPEI. So basically we were set up in, I'm hearing myself very loud. We were set up in 2016, and as I said, we are there to promote entrepreneurial initiatives. So the first thing we did as our flagship project was to launch ZAR, the crowdfunding platform. ZAR is Malta's only reward-based crowdfunding platform. It has been used by various people and entities over the years, ranging from small businesses to freelancers, entrepreneurs, voluntary organizations, and I think we've helped quite a few people. So if you have a project and you are looking for funding, I encourage you to look at ZAR and see what we can offer you. Another thing we do as FPEI is get involved in education, whether it's through EU projects or local projects. And one thing we've launched at the end of last year is a membership club for students. We want to build a community of students who are interested in entrepreneurship, regardless of the degree that they may be reading for. We believe that entrepreneurship is a mindset, and it is a mindset that is going to help anyone, whether they decide to go along the entrepreneurial route and set up their own business, or whether they go into employment, because ultimately entrepreneurship is about using the resources at hand to the best of your ability. And we believe that this is something that can be honed, and it is a skill that you can learn and you can always improve on. And obviously we bring together a community of like-minded people. Only good things can come of it. So if you are a student or you have anyone in your network who is a student, I encourage you to look into FPI Pathfinder. It is basically for anyone who is a tertiary a student at tertiary level, so that's 18 plus. And yes, and you know, I think it's a really good opportunity basically to put forward the entrepreneurial values. Okay, so I think that is it from me. I will hand over to Martin now, and I wish you a very pleasant afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. I should get into the frame. Thanks everyone for coming. We're recording this live, so there's some people around the world watching us today. Thanks for being here despite the challenges outside. So just to kind of get to start to know each other, who here is from Malta? Can I raise your hands? Okay. Wow, there's quite overwhelmingly Maltese audience. I didn't expect that. I was expecting we had quite a bit of international guests as well. And so who here is from Europe, but not Malta? Okay, a few. And the Americas, Africa, Asia. Okay, a few of us, as they say here, third country nationals. And who here has changed their jobs in the past 3 years? Who has in the past done something to improve, gone abroad to improve a skill or to study? Okay. Who's here had hard time recruiting or retaining employees? Okay, yes. So, all these things were all connected to a large extent to what we're going to talk about today, about skills, the labor market, and international mobility. It's a very special place we're in, Malta. It's very international, as we will see, and this is a new clicker, so I'm still getting used to it. So we prepared kind of a program around two big things. First, a look around at how the skills issue, poses challenges in Malta, and then how that intersects a bit with the international mobility. We have a few students, and we also a student testimony to kind of give us some context of how this experience is from the individual's perspective. We'll also have intervention from Canada. Canada, as you know, is one of the most attractive international student destinations, one of the biggest ones, and they just recently had a very challenging policy change where rules for the money you need to have in the account and so on have changed. So we'll have a bit of a testimony about how Canada did this policy, constructed this policy, and what's happening now with these new measures. So this is something that we'll touch quite a few with the panel about the predictability and the transparency of the regulatory aspect. So Malta has a very long history of attracting talent. We had Caravaggio hundreds of years ago coming to Malta and producing some of its best art here in Malta, although my understanding is that he was also a bit of a problematic immigrant. He was in jail. He was quite rowdy. We also have another, very famous person who built the city you see around us. So, in a way, Malta has always been quite central to the history of the region. It's always been a crossroads. We've had St. Paul accidentally visiting the island, but also the Knights of Rhodes choosing their home in Malta, and of course the very legendary passage of Ulysses, which is disputed by pretty much every country in the Mediterranean. But at the end of the day, this is kind of what you see in Wikipedia. Malta has been occupied or invaded or colonized by many, many, many people indeed. Part of it is because, it's at a strategic point in the middle of the Mediterranean, and this has always been one of the reasons of being so attractive. And more recently, we've had, the big empires, the French and English, kind of really fighting over the island. But mostly it was about the strategic position of the island. But today, the world has, changed quite a lot. The importance of the location, of course, Malta is still at the center of the Mediterranean, but it's not that much big of a deal anymore. But Malta very smartly, since joining the EU more or less, has managed to have a very dynamic economic outlook. They've done some key reforms, ensured all the macro stability needed to go into the union and so on. And they kind of, capitalized on some of the industries which, were already, let's say, important, like tourism. But they also built entire new industries which they attracted through very favorable regulation. And that means that today Malta really has a very diverse profile of production and export. It's very well connected to the entire world. as you know, this is, one of my questions was how hard is it to recruit and retain? It's very hard because the job market there's basically no unemployment in Malta. It's, I think, under 4%, which is basically full employment. So that is very good news, mainly for job seekers. It's a bit harder for recruiters, of course. And the most interesting thing about this is that it is a nation in the Mediterranean, which has notoriously high unemployment rates. So Malta has been able to find this kind of magic formula to create a dynamic economy in this context. All of you who are here, especially the Maltese, you have seen this very sharply, how maybe 20 years ago there were a few foreigners in Malta, but not that many foreign workers. And this has changed drastically in only 20 years. It's been multiplied by 10, something like this. And now over 20% of the working population is foreign. The composition is, the trend had been first for a lot of EU workers coming to Malta. Up until 2019, there was a slight drop during just before COVID. And what we call third country nationals, so non-EU nationals, kind of took over in 2019 and now represent over 50,000 workers in Malta. So that's quite a lot. So if they weren't here, really the economy could not function well. Sorry, I'm moving a lot. I mean, the good news is there is kind of this awareness, of course, because it's a crime problem. It's something that businesses are confronted to this reality, which means that they effectively hire foreigners to a much higher rate than their European counterparts. So the businesses are very much involved in this kind of attraction of talent, and are very much open to working with the foreigners in Malta, because it's just makes sense. And in fact, as many of you know, some of you are representative of public institutions, some of you are private sector, and for sure the private sector has articulated kind of this need of creating new tools, new ways to manage immigration that make the recruiting, the attraction of suitable candidates easier. So as we all know, there are some challenges with visas. This year, the fast track scheme was introduced. So the idea is that we cut down on the bureaucracy, we make it a bit more agile to be able to apply to the visas. There's also the digital nomad visa. Of course, this is another scheme with some limited success, but with some members, I think about 200 people have applied. And of course, the biggest scheme related to education is probably Get Qualified, which has run now, I think, for something like 10 years. And it's basically a tax credit where the government reimburses you up to 70% of your student costs. This internationally, I have to say, this is an amazing scheme. I mean, very few places in the world give you the opportunity to, first of all, access degrees that are cost competitive, let's say, quite cost effective, and also to stay and work, because of course there is the possibility of getting a visa and working and getting most of the money that you spend studying back. So this is a super attractive scheme internationally. Overall, there are a few challenges, of course. We will talk more about this on the first panel. The first thing is that the job market has changed quite a lot. This tendency has a few decades, but it's become very marked now. People care more about skills than specific diplomas, although sometimes they require both. But at the end of the day, many of the skills that we are looking for today, they don't necessarily require diplomas. A lot of them can be done by self-learning and thinking of the coding and development and so on. More than half the people in Malta are in jobs that do not map their skills. That means that they are over or underqualified. So that's quite a big number. Women are more likely to be overqualified for their jobs. And this kind of is a tendency. So more and more people go to university, but it seems like the jobs that require those degrees don't follow. So we have an overqualification tendency that's on the rise. And some sectors are particularly affected, or some professions. As you may know, for instance, Malta has a chronic shortage of accountants. And this affects absolutely every company, every industry. So, this is one of the key, let's say, bottlenecks that need to be addressed. course, challenges come with opportunities. There are, quite a lot of strong foundations to build on in Malta as a, let's say, as a mobility hub. Malta, sometimes we complain about how thin it is to get things done in Malta, but other times the government can act very swiftly. We can see it with the cannabis or the blockchain regulations. In very fast-moving, let's say, sectors, the government was able, in a very short time, to enact quite a clear legislation that gave some predictability to the businesses, so that they are able to expand in these sectors. So there is an opportunity to, that something that a change that is needed can be implemented fast if the circumstances are correct. And here, of course, it's our multi-stakeholders who have, the best knowledge of how this whole dialogue with policymakers, private entities, and so on goes on. And there's also a perception. I'll go back to this in a bit, but Maltese youth want to migrate out of the country for a better life. But there is a change of perceptions to do. Malta apparently is ranked 4th in the EU for graduate employment. That means that after 6 months, about 91–92% of employees, students have a job. So this is something that's very, very important for students when they start their studies. And these are very, very, very good numbers at European level, and of course connected, with the low unemployment rate. So this, just wanted to show this last slide before I introduce the panel, the first panel. Just introduce them, and then I'll continue, and then we go back to the panel. This is the English language teaching students and weeks in Malta. You can see that the main countries in terms of numbers are Italy, France, Germany, Poland, Colombia, Spain, Japan, Austria, Czech Republic, and Brazil. Brazil is a recent tendency, as you may know, but I have noticed so many Brazilians here in Malta. I think they tend to like it quite a lot. And of course, you can see here something very interesting is that the people who come from far away, from Colombia and Japan, they tend to purchase a lot of weeks of English. So here, I want to show you this because we're talking about skills, and of course, Malta attracts people to develop their language skills first and foremost. So we have thousands of English students that come here to learn or to improve their English. And these are, to a large extent, a very, very good potential client base for higher education. So these most of them are young people. They often have, higher education plans. So here, I think there might be an opportunity to, convince them to stay in Malta. So we'll discuss about some of these things with our first panel, more specific on Malta's skill gap, with Dr. Francis Fabri, Lorian from ITS Training School, Lorian Kacha from National Skills Councils, and Mario Gassar from University of Malta. Of course, it's a challenge within Malta, but of course Malta is a small place in the world. Sorry. It intersects with a bigger trend, which is international mobility. Quite a few of us in this room have been internationally mobile for studies. I did my studies abroad, and here you can see the density of the world, the world's flights, and Malta is right there in the middle. So this is a reality that people will move, they will move back, and very often higher education is a very good opportunity for moving. This international mobility resonates mostly with youth. So, it tends to be youth that's more adventurous, or although not exclusively, there are quite a few mature students as well, but often it's young people who are the biggest hunger to migrate. In fact, 3/4 of Maltese millennials, which are not so young because I'm a millennial, and Generation Z would rather live abroad. So that's quite a lot, and I was quite worried when I saw this. So I looked for the global statistics. Global statistics are about 1/3 of the people want to migrate, want to go to find a better life somewhere. And this is increasing because not only there are more opportunities for travel as well, of course. It's a bit a case of the grass is always greener, because for instance, if you think about Ireland, I'm sure everyone will think it's an economy that's doing very well in Europe, that is providing ample opportunities for its citizens. Yes, I mean, we all have a very good image, and I see some nodding. but 70% of Irish youth want to migrate. So it's a very similar percentage than in Malta, but I'm sure that if I asked you before, what do you think? You would have said it's much lower. So, why do people migrate? I mean, there is a positive. They want to do things. They want to get a better job or a different job. They want to study, expand their horizon, improve their lives, or get better weather. If you live in Ireland, that for sure is going to be one of them. There's also push factors. So when they ask Maltese youth about, if they would rather live abroad, they said yes, and they asked why. And you wouldn't believe that overdevelopment and traffic were the top 2 reasons cited. And so this is a really strong cry to say the quality of life here in my country is a challenge. I don't see it going in the right direction. But in fact, one common factor between the Irish and the Maltese youth was the cost of living. So there is a kind of this cost of living crisis, and people have very hard time projecting themselves into purchasing a house or things like this. So this makes them want to go and see elsewhere, and it's normal. So this, as I was saying, skills have always been important, but this tendency has been very marked since COVID. We've all worked remotely for some time. Most of us loved it and want to continue. So this is, for instance, something that an employee will seek. And also, we kind of noticed that the job market kind of started to struggle recruiting because people are making different choices. And so we are going to look for very specific skills that we need, and they're going to be very hard to find. So that means that if I'm skilled, I have more chances to move, to get new opportunities, and so on. And here, the third country nationals in the room will understand it better why it's really so important. Skills are literally a passport. A specific skill, it might be from the university, or it might be a self-learned skill, can be instrumental into getting a work permit, a residence permit in other countries. In fact, it will often be one of the main reason for trying to scale up specifically in this path is because I want to go and live in Australia, I want to go and live in the US, and this is what they're looking for there. But we will see in the testimony the hard skills, the ones that we go and learn and study, are not the only ones. When we travel and we move, we also develop a range of skills like communication, adaptability, problem solving, but also empathy, that really add a lot to our professional profile, but also personal profile. Studies show that people who have lived abroad are happier, less anxious, more balanced. So, it's something that when you experience this, it will also affect a large number of the soft skills, and the soft skills are extremely important. But of course, it's not just about what you want to learn, it's about the whole package. So people will, unless people have a very specific desire about the university that they want to go, usually they will consider things as a whole. Very often there will be a passion from before. So, some people have an obsession with England and, the king and the queen, and they love that, and they say, I really want to live in the UK because, that's my dream. But often it can be something, a friend that's migrated and that is telling about, my life in Malta, it's very nice, this is how it is. And the person says, okay, I need to go out, I'm going to have kind of this vision, this project, where I see myself going to this place, and I will do some research. So maybe, I have a doubt, I might compare, the prices and so on from between Malta and Ireland, about the quality of the universities and so on. At some point, we're going to make the financial decision. We're going to move to the country, find a place to stay, and study and work. So really, it's not just about, the end point, this is the degree that I will have. It's about the whole journey, how I think my life will be in the country, and so on. And very often, those of us who have kind of this experience, we know that it's not always easy. There's kind of troubles along the way. It's not always easy to find information from the country. People coming from Malta, for instance, they try to rent a flat online. No. And we have to explain, no. You arrive here, you stay at Airbnb, and then you look at the flat, because if you don't see the flat, you never know. So, there's a lot of hurdles, the visas, we've had people making plans and everything falls to the water because of one mistake in the visa file. And these are very big plans, usually third country nationals when they come here. It's harder, it's more expensive, they probably stay for many years before they come in, so it's very important that there is kind of this support along the way, and here the institutions provide some of this, and of course the agency who is sponsoring us with the studies is kind of their specialty is to accompany the students across the journey. So, I mean, Malta already has a future, has a present as an international mobility hub. We have thousands of English students, but also higher education students coming here every year. So the wheel is already in motion. We just need to kind of figure out how to remove some of the most important barriers to allow this flow of students to get to Malta. There's a very dynamic private sector, academic development. Really, there's a few education, both masters and bachelor's level. There's a few providers. The government has been, quite open about this. The challenge is it's a very competitive sector. Malta is tiny. There is also Canada, USA, Australia, New Zealand, UK. How do we position ourselves in front of this in a very competitive environment? Because these countries also have a lot to offer. So how does Malta craft its message? How they can become more attractive to international students. To discuss this, we'll have the second panel with Dr. Daniel Cherry from English Language Teaching Council, Mr. Adrian Bofaro from Global Business School, and Joaquin Pinto, who Director of Urban Studies, who has COVID. So he will be joining us remotely from this screen. Okay, so this is my very short introduction, and we will very much. And now we will have, I'm not mistaken if she's connected, Lina from Canada. She will kind of give us this experience from Montreal about how they've managed to, to create a program that was a victim of its own success. They brought in so many students that apparently this has had some important consequences on the policy.
You can call her.
Okay, Lina?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Martin?
great.
Okay, hi everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you today. So first of all, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Lina Alvarez. I've been living here in Canada around 9 years. I came here as an international student too. I was studying first French with the objective to become a permanent resident. Then I did a higher education program in a university here in Canada. And then I did all the process to be a permanent resident here, and I fell in love with this country as many international students, and I stayed here for more years than I thought at that time. So I'm currently working for Women Studies as a destination manager, and I've been working for different institutions and companies, helping students to come here to Canada through these 10 years that I've been living here. And I have been experienced both sides, being an international student and helping them becoming permanent residents or becoming a student here in Canada. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about the strategy that Canada has been pursuing for the past years to recruit the students, and why international students are very important, are so important to Canada to fulfill the sectors or the labor market that they want to help with this international students. So first of all, the sectors that are most important here, I will study in Canada and in Quebec, and most of it, that is the province where I live, are aerospace, information technology, healthcare and biotechnology, green energy and environmental technology, manufacturing, and tourism and hospitality. So Canada has been recruiting around 9,100 students on the past year, just the past year, fulfill these areas, because here the demand of these sectors are very high, and we don't have enough people to fulfill these sectors. So what Canada has been doing is that they have been recruiting, helping international students to come to see the country, to study here, to be more qualified on these areas here, and then to stay in Canada. The statistics says that 60% of the international students that come to Canada, they stay here after their studies to work, and then they stay as a permanent resident. They do a process to be international, to be permanent residents, to stay in the country, because they, of course, really like the conditions of the country, because they really like the opportunities Canada offers them, and also because Canada has very important programs for them in order to they can like stay and they can be part of the country. So for Canada, international students are very important because they contribute on the economic side. Of course, the diversity and cultural exchange is very important too. The innovation and research, they are part of many programs that Canada has. Like they can be part of this research, even they are already, for example, graduated from the university, or if they want to contribute as in the innovation, they can do it. As global networking, of course, Canada, for example, 30% of the population of Toronto are not from Toronto, so the global networking you can do in Canada around the difference is it's very important. The skilled workforce, of course, the international students, they will contribute for this skilled workforce, since Canada is recruiting more and more students that they are more qualified, and their profile are more focused to what Canada needs. So that's why the past years, I would say the five past years, Canada has been doing a lot of changes on the immigration policies, because they want to recruit students that are very focused on what they need, that are the sectors that I already mentioned. The cultural diplomacy, of course, it's very important for Canada too. The education, it's excellence, because the international students has been like what has been happening in the past years is that since Canada has had a lot of international students, they have been doing that the education, it's becoming more and more strict, I would say, and the quality of the education is being better, because the government is doing a lot of like they've been qualifying a lot the universities, so we can have the best education in order to have a lot of good qualified professionals. The population is growing too, so a lot of international students, they come here and they stay, and that helps, of course, in the economy and the population growth, as Canada is the second biggest country in the world after Russia, and the population is not very big, so that helps too. And of course, the language skills. It's very important also to mention that in Canada, we have Quebec that we speak French, and the rest of Canada that speaks only English. So the students, a lot of the students here, they come just to study French. Then they understand the culture, they understand that it's an open country, they understand that they can stay here and the opportunities they have, and then they want to do and they stay here and they extend the way to stay here as doing, for example, a higher education program. So the languages here are very important also to attract students, to let them come and see the country, let them see how Canada can contribute on their professional life, and then they can stay here as an international students. So as Martin was saying, yes, Canada has been like a victim of their own success. So in the past weeks, we have heard a lot of changes that the government was wanting to do. For example, reducing 35% of the international students that we have here, because we have been successful on the recruitment of international students. So it's not that Canada doesn't want any more international students, it's that Canada wants specific profiles to fulfill the needs that we have in order to to have a better economy and to have qualified workers. So yes, we have had some changes. We're going to have less international students, but more international students qualified and focus on what the needs of Canada. So yeah, that is the information. I don't know if you have any questions or comments.
Are there any specific questions for Canada? Okay, we can move on to Joaquin. Thank you so much, Lina. Joaquin, I'll put your presentation.
Yes. Hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Truly sorry I cannot be there with you today. Actually, I flew back from Canada just to be present at this event, but I got COVID, so I need to be responsible with the audience and my colleagues. And I am here in Malta, but at my home. So anyway, thank you very much everyone for being here today. I would like to.
I'm taking care of your slides.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So I would like to go through a short presentation, I don't want to make it very long, but my focus would be on how is it that we attract international students in a competitive environment, right? And this is something that is very important. I'm not seeing the presentation, but if you can just move to the second slide, please, and let you move forward. And I'd like to start to discuss these following topics. So the first one is the motivations and the trends, and then what is international competitive landscape, and something to discuss then with the panel, what would be some of Malta's challenges and strengths currently, right? So I didn't introduce myself, I'm sorry, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Studies. So I work within the international recruitment sphere, and we are present in also Canada and other countries. So this is the approach I will try to give to the presentation, right? To try to compare other latitudes with Malta and how our students are seeing Malta as a higher education destination, because Malta is very popular among English students, right? But now we have the challenge to create a strong reputation for Malta as a higher education destination. And I think that we're all together in this private sector, the government, higher education institutions, and recruiters. So if you go to the third slide, something that we cannot deny is that international education is probably one of the most important vectors of international mobility nowadays. And it really constitutes something that creates a strong path towards going to live another life. And this is something that many of our students, especially non-EU, and I will address also EU, but non-EU as well, but they're very different, because, for instance, EU students, they can choose an Erasmus program, or they can choose whenever they like to move within countries in the European Union. It's quite easy to do it, right? You don't need a lot of permits. With your passport, you can cross the border and have another education. There are lots of schemes, reimbursements, etc. But for non-EU students, it's very much a different story, right? And these are the majority of the students. 57% of the 6.4 million international students are non-EU, especially from Asia. But of course, that's because Asia represents the most densely populated area in the world. But Africa, Latin America, they are also bringing lots of students to the international countries, especially to the OECD countries, which are the most developed ones. And the top countries attracting international students nowadays are the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, Germany, France, and Canada. And when we are talking about Malta, as a destination for international students, we should be aware that we are competing with those countries, right? Because the student finally, they have these options on the table. Of course, the profiles are different depending on each line of regulation. We're going to address this, but it's true. One can go to Malta or one can go to Canada, and it's a very different story, right? And what are these students looking for? I've heard a lot about migration from Martin and Rosalina, and it's true that migration is a pillar, but not only migration, right? There are many other things that are important when you want to attract international students. And how Malta can be a player among these landscapes. So we go to the fourth. I will speak about trends and motivations. So in the fifth one, we'll show you, we'll see them all, but these are some very interesting motivations from the European Association of International Education. You see things like personal growth, or better academic knowledge, or even leisure, right? So these things are very important because we need to provide the right environment for this to happen. And I was an international student in Malta at the beginning of my Maltese adventure. Well, I've been to Malta before, but I did study an irrigation program in Malta. And yeah, there were many of these topics that were attractive to me, right? Such as the cross-cultural interests, or the leisure aspect, or just getting to know more international people. And we need to put Malta at the center of awareness of what you can find, because when we speak with our students that are looking for other destinations, they are not normally aware of what Malta has to offer. But they've heard a lot about Canada, about the US, or about the UK. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done still to position Malta as an attractive destination. And then on the sixth slide, on the next slide, of course, we tackle the international study as a migration opportunity. And I know that the integration part is very important. I lived in France for some years, and I can say that in France, the integration policies have failed. You see that the French society is very, very dispersed and broken, and this is not getting better with the years. And if Malta is attracting more and more international students and people to the island, and workers, one should hope that Malta doesn't fall into that big problem, because at the end it's going to create some seizures within the society. I would say that the UK has a much better integration approach. You can see it by the face of the Prime Minister or the Mayor of London, for instance, as opposed to any politician in France, right? And I do love France, don't take me wrong. And I'm just saying what is very important in the fact that international offers the possibility to have international students integrating in a much better way with the local environment, because it gives them time to not only network and get to know the people, but also really know if they like it here, right? Because you hear sometimes some people that come because they are offered a work permit or whatever, and they come to Malta, and then they arrive and they say, well, this is not what I was expecting, and then they create some distance with the environment. So if you come for a study program, you have the opportunity for it. A year or 2 years, whatever it takes, to really know if you like it, if this is the place for you, because I know that it's the place for some and it isn't for others, right? And also because immigration policies are a lot, more oriented to try to attract people towards the education pathways, or at least it should be that way. So if you go to the 7 and the 8, this is where we can see some key aspects of how the international big players are positioning themselves to attract international students. So The first is the work permit regulations. All international students, or at least the vast majority of them, non-Europeans, they would ask, am I allowed to work while I'm studying and after study? What are the benefits for me in those kind of regulations? If you have, for instance, Lina was talking about some changes in Canada, and Canada just restricted the opportunities for work for spouses of international students in some situations, and this is creating a major shock within the international community, because part of the way that you will afford your life in your destination is by working. And this work permit regulation has to be very clear. Then housing, cost of living. I know that most of you may say that Malta has been seeing a hike in cost of living. It might be true, but nothing like Toronto downtown or Dublin or whatever, where really it's very, very expensive. So Malta still has a very competitive advantage on that. Then career opportunities. That is something that is very, very important. And when we discuss with the students, we try to see what is the profile of the student and try to orient them towards a real career opportunity. So for instance, you have aircraft maintenance in Malta, or you have business programs, or you have this type of programs that you know that you will have, or accountancy, as Martin was mentioning before, you know that you will have interest. But if you say, well, can I study anthropology at the University of Malta? Yes, you can, but I'm not sure that Malta will offer you the best opportunities for an anthropologist. I'm not sure. I'm not a specialist, but I mean, there are probably other countries where you will have more career opportunities. So it's very important to have those career opportunities very clear. Then the quality of the education of it. And I think that there is a nice group of providers, public and private, that are providing quality education, and we should keep forward with this quality, because this is something that will, at the end of the day, reflect on the reputation of the island. Yes, I learned some new skills. They are good for me to be able to insert in the workplace. Then in the next slide, quality of life, of course. And yeah, Malta has a lot of, it's very attractive to be in the Mediterranean, for sure, as opposed to -20 in Canada where I was. Yes, but well, there are other things for quality of life as well. Family permits are my family members being able to come with me as a student. This is something that's important to speak right with the regulators. Is the society tolerant and open-minded, or is there a lot of racism in the country of destination? You know, many students are afraid to go to the US because of the price of this type of, you know, very, very important racist statements, right? So it's something to consider. And then the reputation of the country. Then, well, yeah, if you go to the 10th slide, please, then you can see that each one of the biggest countries have, you know, one, at least it's like a slogan or something that they're well known for. So Canada is good for families. America is the land of opportunities. In the UK, Australia, good wages and surf and beaches, of course. And what is that competitive landscape positioning for them? This is a question I'd like to leave for. And then just to finish with some strengths and challenges, which is the next 11th and then the 12th. Well, I can see some strength. For instance, with the part-time job license for Jobs Plus and the job seeker visa after getting your work permit, and the low unemployment in Malta, the affordability, because believe it or not, maybe some of you don't think so, but when you compare it to other destinations, or what the other destinations just showed, Malta is much more affordable. Quality of life, weather, low crime, Mediterranean lifestyle, yes. The startup ecosystem, Giselle was mentioning at the beginning that she wanted to attract students, entrepreneurs, And that's right. Now there is a startup residence program. There are some schemes for Malta Enterprise, the Malta Startup Festival, a community of entrepreneurs present in the island. And if you want to do a business program in Malta, and then go into this very important ecosystem, I think that there are opportunities for students to thrive. And finally, support such as the Get Qualified scheme or trainings from Jobs Plus. And then some of the challenges on the next slide. Well, career opportunities because of the size of the island is normal, are limited to some sectors. Family programs, students to find that they are a bit restrictive. The Maltese family reunification policies, and it's complicated to get more credits for the spouses of the students, for instance. Then the changing regulations. We've just had some announcements about visa programs, ways of applying, and for years that we've been in Malta, we've seen this quite a lot. And the regulatory landscape is one of the biggest challenges, right? If you keep changing these, students will not have certainty. And then this is something that requires a lot of investment. So they might go to other latitudes where the regulations are not changing all the time. Then the international efforts, of course, this is something that has to do with the trade missions. Some of the countries have very active trade missions promoting the country to attract students, from the government, from the diplomatic missions. So this is something that is very important within the chambers of commerce, etc. And it gives a very important position into the countries that do it actively. And Malta is not doing it as active as other countries. And then finally, the reputation, as I mentioned, we still have a long way to go to put Malta in the scene of international competitive actors. So that was it for me. I hope that I brought some insights to the discussion, and I'll be sticking around for the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joaquin. And I'm just going to highlight one thing from Joaquin. I come from Uruguay. We have a lot of colleagues here from home that are from Latin America. And I know for Maltese people, the situation has been degrading somehow, but the security in Malta, I mean, you wouldn't believe what it means to people from South America. It's magic.
Yeah.
It's magic. The things we can do here, the freedom with which we live in Malta, we cannot do it in any place on Latin America. Which basically what I mean is being careless and carefree and not worried that something might happen. So some things, you might think, okay, yes, Malta, the beaches and so on, and these are things that are maybe not in the radar, but every single Latin American person I speak to, I ask, what do you like about Malta? They tell me it's safe. I can go out with my watch. So this is the level of insecurity we're used to in Latin America. Like, no, you don't go out with your watch or anything
Or
valuable.
anything, phone or being a
The
woman
rings,
and be a
anything
woman.
can be, so this is some of the things where Malta can really capitalize. Because, yes, please.
But we were much safer before.
Sorry?
We were much safer before.
Yes, I'm sure.
So for us Maltese,
For
we
sure.
can see the difference.
Yes. I mean, I think if you go to Gozo, you still have that feeling.
Maybe.
Depends where you go.
Where people go. I remember a friend had his car blocked in Gozo, and the person, and they were like, no, we can't get the car. They called the police called the bar. And the person, oh, no, of course, it's the DJ's car. He left the keys on the car so you can move it. So it was so obvious, but as foreigners, I would never check for the key in the car because I would never do it myself. So just before the panel, I'm just working this out. I'm just going to show you a very short testimony, very honest testimony of one of the students that came here to Malta and had kind of this pathway thought out. It didn't quite work out exactly as intended, but she does highlight some interesting lessons. So I'm just trying to find my mouse. Okay, so we're going to hear from Karina. Can you give me a hand with the phone? It's a very modern remote.
We are millennial. It's not going up.
Very minimalist.
Yeah. Oh.
Can I try?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Maybe I'll see.
Because
I have one
When
executive.
you know
No,
how.
because I have one executive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Back in 2020. Hello everyone, my name is Karina and I'm happy to share my journey with you. Back in 2021, I took a bold step and moved from my home country to Malta to pursue an MBA. This was during the period when COVID restrictions were being lifted, so there were many foreigners coming to the island. I would like to mention also that throughout this journey, Malta provided guidance and helping me find a program that aligned with my interests and future plans. So studying in Malta wasn't just about gaining academic knowledge. It was an opportunity to immerse myself in a new culture and meet new people. Malta, as you know, has a rich history and a vibrant atmosphere, so I thought it was a great destination for me. After a few months of studying, I decided it was time to look for a job. I applied for several positions and quickly realized that finding something related to my previous work in NGOs and government wasn't going to be easy. Unfortunately, such roles are rare in Malta and often require local experience and knowledge of the Maltese language. It's worth noting that my school didn't provide guidance on the local job market or organize networking activities with local companies or not even among students. So to overcome this challenge, I had to create my own network. I reached out to professionals on LinkedIn that were somehow linked to CSR, social issues, or related. And thanks to the conversations I had with these people, I understood the importance of flexibility. I understood that I had to adapt my skills to meet the demands of the local job market, considering roles in marketing or human resources. Thanks to my network, I had a job offer as a recruiter in a small recruitment company, and I became the first third-country national to join the team. Transitioning from a student to a working professional in a new country presented challenges. Adapting to a different work culture and understanding local dynamics wasn't always easy. However, each challenge became an opportunity to grow and learn, and also somehow I got to share also my previous experience with that new team and also to propose new ideas. And I think the key lesson from this journey was the importance of flexibility. While my educational background provided a solid foundation and also my professional experience had this solid foundation, it was more that transferable skills like adaptability, communication, and personally having a global mindset that I think that truly set me apart. So just for a moment, I had to forget about who I was professionally before and then start over with my personal skills. Also, I realized that language is also crucial. So having a good command of English and the confidence to lead meetings and make phone calls in English, is essential. As a recruiter, I observed many candidates with solid experience facing rejection due to language barriers. After 2 years in Malta, I left for personal reasons and relocated to another European country. But if there's one thing I'd like to leave with you is that mobility is not just about physical relocation, but also about the ability to move between roles, industries, and to adapt to diverse environments. So that was my experience in Malta, and thank you for listening. Take care, bye bye.
Okay, I love this testimony because it's very honest. You know, things didn't quite turn out how she expected. I can tell as well from my own experience, it's very challenging to kind of change countries and continue your professional life. The sector you were in is not necessarily that open to receiving you. As well from the NGO sector, when I moved to Scotland, it was all basically liver charities in Scotland because of the alcohol problem they have. And Karina as well had a lot of experience in social responsibility and so on. And fortunately in Malta, these positions do tend to require Maltese because, of course, the companies work with Maltese communities. So, you know, these are challenges that are unexpected. And also, I mean, she came here to build some quite specific skills. She was in business administration. But at the end of the day, what she says is it's the soft skills that mattered for me to advance my journey. So not so much the hard skills, I learned how to do a budget and this is what got me the job. It's more because I have this global mindset. I, you know, overcame the barriers with English where I didn't have the confidence and so on. And this is why, again, I'm kind of reinforcing Joaquin's point that this kind of long studies, doing a bachelor's in another country, kind of gives you this experience that you need to be comfortable in the country, to be comfortable with the language, and to have kind of this presence in the country, which allows you to access some opportunities which perhaps are typically more reserved for the nationals. So now I'd like to invite, sorry, I'm a bit stuck, but the first panelist, please. So we have ITS Training School, National Skills Councils, and University of Malta. I'll just put the names right here in a second. You can please come. Thank you.
Matti, is this one? Maybe.
No, it's a presentation.
Hello, wait.
Thank you very much. So first I'll just a small round of introductions, just you know this who you are, who you work for, and you know how you're interested in this topic.
Okay, thanks Martin. I'm Marek Assar, I come from University of Malta. I have been involved in student recruitment for the last 10 years, international student recruitment. My background is in marketing, so I am responsible for the marketing strategy that we conduct overseas, and then obviously we welcome students to Malta, and this is what we do. I am not on my own, I have a team of people, and we try as much as possible to offer a one-stop shop for our international applicants. Thank you. I think so.
We're going to speak loudly and the troubleshooting. Maybe we can use one of the.
It's okay.
Oh. Thank you.
My name is Ryan Hakiyan. I come from Council, which was reset up, I might say, last year. It was already there in 2016, but re-established with executive powers, and that's when we came into being. I take care of research and international relations, and we're a very small team of people. However, we have big plans ahead. So in terms of skills, that's where we come in reality, and it's what we speak about from the morning to the evening, I must say.
Hello, my name is Frank Fabry. I come from the education sector. For the last year, I've been assigned to a particular role. I'm currently the general manager at the Institute of Tourism Studies Training School, meaning that our main focus is that of working directly with the hospitality and tourism industry in Malta. Previously, I had the position of the permanent secretary in education, a very powerful role. I had the opportunity to challenge the education system, which is a very difficult job to do actually, because education is a very conservative sector, and trying to challenge the system is not an easy task. But I have nothing to regret if I had to go back, and I'll do the same things, if not more aggressive than I used to. I'll stop here.
Thank you. So just for the opening question for Gloriane, just to give us a bit more of the context. So the National Skills Council is fairly recent. I understand that it comes from a diagnostic. So if you can tell us where is the skill gap, what are the issues, and what are the main findings that you've done so far.
Thank you, Martin. And the need, or rather the identification of this skills gap being a national issue couldn't have been more prominent by our establishment. So us being set up was the result of this skills gap that we're here today talking about, was felt at a national level, and therefore it was the governance of it for us to be established. And you mentioned it as well in terms of having first, let's say, exercise at a national level being undertaken by the National Statistics Office way back in 2022, where there were a first attempt to get an idea of Malta's skills of the working age population, of course. And so that would be around between 16 and 64. So that's at a national level. However, let us not think that it is only a national problem. It is a European one, if not a global one. And in fact, for 2023, 2024, even the European Commission proclaimed 2023 as the European Year of Skills, which is running till May now. So in terms of skills, in Malta specifically, we don't see it solely as a skills gap. There is also another shortage, that is the labor one, and in fact that is something that we see it in tandem. Two very different problems as well, and they can't they have to be solved differently and addressed differently. So what we mean by labor shortage is basically the lack of human capital. So we don't have enough persons, hands, to do all the tasks that are available locally. And of course, the skills is also a problem in terms of this gap, also as evidenced by the NSO survey, that there is both a skills mismatch, a horizontal one as well as a vertical one. So the vertical.
These kind of batteries as well. I think we can continue on.
Of course, I agree. So in terms of a vertical mismatch in that you are also mentioning that you are over or underqualified for the job that you are doing, but also persons who are trained in a specific, or have a specific skill set, not doing exactly what they were trained to do. Of course, we are lucky in terms of having the majority of persons that graduate, even that don't, that get a job, because of course, which is of course resulting from the low level of the labor shortage, so to speak. Thank you very much. This has of course resulted from the high economic growth, that being of 6.9% in 2022, resulting from increased domestic demand, tourism recovery post-COVID, and service export. So those were the main reasons. But also, we need to think about Malta resulting, or rather, let's say, a side effect from a low fertility rate. We have amongst the lowest fertility rates in Europe, that of 1.14%. And also, we need to remember that 2.1% is the right balance to remain for the exactly to remain stable, and that looks like a long way to go, and it doesn't seem to be. We're not bridging that anytime soon, so we will remain with the issue of having the need to import skills and labor. So it's also, as mentioned in the presentations, that the importance of remaining dynamic in our economy, and in order to be able to attract the necessary manpower, human capital, talent, and retain it then once here. It's very important.
Now for Maya and Frank. So this skill gap, it's been here for some time, although you know it's becoming more pressing. How have your institutions dealt with this challenge?
Yes, thanks for that, Martin. I think to answer that question, we have to look at the historical overview of the University of Malta. University of Malta, it's the only full-fledged university on the island. It has been here for around 500 years. Started here in Valletta, 1592. And we have been around specifically to cater for the needs of the nation. And this is precisely why the international students that come to us, they started showing interest in our university, because they realized there is an opportunity for them. As a university, we were more focused on the national needs, the national interests. In the recent years, however, given that obviously Malta developed, we have responded to the industry, like for example, something that comes to mind is blockchain. Even when it's not just the courses. I mean, you have to also look at the research. So when we say we responded, it's not creating a particular program of studies that is going to address a problem here in Malta in the labor market, but also sometimes research is important. Sometimes you get a student from overseas who is interested in a particular research proposal, and that research proposal can be used to the benefit of the industry. And we are seeing this increasing, especially students who are coming from Europe to our university, and then most of them, they stay here in Malta, working here in Malta. I think it's in our gene as a university, and it's our obligation that we respond to the needs. Unfortunately, and I have to say this, University of Malta is a self-accreditation institution, so sometimes also I have to take into consideration that a course to be launched, it has to take some time. So we don't wake up in the morning and we say we're going to organize a course about, I don't know, farmers. I'm thinking of the protest that was out here. We cannot do that. It has to pass through a number of processes, and we also involve international professors to certify the course that the course is actually is what it is. I mean, what we are promising basically. So yes. Another thing which I would like to mention is that now university, and this is quite recent, we're looking at the possibility of offering micro-credentials. So traditionally, university has always been perceived by the Maltese, the general public here, as a university offering diplomas and degrees and masters by research and PhDs. But now we are also opening to micro-credentials, which means that students can come and attend for part of the course. Okay. And additional to that, we are also putting our house in order so that we will be able to offer short courses. So there is a particular need in the industry for a particular, it could be anything. It could be law, it could be IT. There are several areas that we're looking get. And this is something which we are addressing as we speak. Thank you.
This is a very interesting area, and it's not easy to discuss it in a few minutes. But I find myself a little bit in a privileged position because I had the opportunity of shadowing or of having the responsibility ultimately of all education institutions, state education institutions in Malta. When I was permanent secretary, I had the responsibility of the University of Malta in CAST, the Institute for Education, which we established, and what have you. And nowadays I miss only the Institute of Tourism Studies, which for the last year I had the opportunity of working within the institution. And here comes my bias, which I have to declare. I am very much in favor of applied education. And this is one of the main faults in education worldwide, not only in Malta, because we are still stuck from the very early years up to our tertiary institutions. And please note, I am not referring to education as a tertiary institution, because in Malta we have a good number of other tertiary institutions, including UMCAS and other institutions. Unfortunately, from early years till the tertiary level, we are still stuck very much into the industrial model of education. And that is how it is constructed. That is why we have subjects. That is why we have timetables. That is why schools are run from 8 till 2:30, 3:00, 4:00. Because we are still stuck in the industrial model of education, which is a pity. And that is why I am very much in favor of applied education. Applied education is relevant education. Because we go to education institutions not to learn the subjects in themselves and we stop there. We learn English, maths, Maltese, and any other subject specifically to apply them in a real context. Which unfortunately I truly miss this aspect when I visit schools, when I read about schooling and education, because they are detached from reality. And the best models of education is those that were very close to the industry. And one of the things that I tried very hard to introduce here in Malta after going around Europe and visiting a good number of, and in Asia and what have you, a good number of education systems around the globe. The best education systems are those that not simply consult the industry, but they work throughout with the industry, even in the design of their own curriculum. And education systems that design their curriculum within themselves, they are missing reality. And there we are missing the bridge. And that is why nowadays, we are facing, as we were saying, skills gaps, mismatching, and all this stuff. And as I go back to my point, wherever education is applied, is contextualized, and that is why micro-credentials are becoming very popular. And that is why, I don't know whether you are aware of, that is why the industry is establishing its own academies, because they are retraining their staff. Staff have, this is the evidence that we are gathering. Employers have to help their employees to relearn, unlearn first. They have to unlearn and relearn in order to reskill and upskill themselves. So one of the main problems leading to the upskill to the skills gaps and mismatching is that of the design of our curricula within our education institutions. And then there are other problems because it is not enough designing the curriculum, but then, and here again, this is a second major fault. The second major fault is that of evaluating the gap between the intended curriculum, what we write as a curriculum, and what is being delivered and achieved by the student. And there is a wide gap, leading to skills gap, actually. One last point, maybe I have the opportunity of exploring it further later on, is that ITS, we are very proud that in 4 weeks' time, we'll be introducing the skills pass. We usually refer it to the skills card, but we termed it skills pass because we believe, and Martin, you referred to it in your introduction, skills are the equivalence of passporting nowadays. Okay? And hence, we've established a new benchmark, new standards, so that employees entering and current employees within the hospitality and tourism industry, they must have basic knowledge and basic skills within their occupations. And we believe that this good practice has to be across all sectors, not only hospitality and tourism, so that all our employees are truly skilled, and hence we sustain our growth and innovation within our country.
Thank you. Very interesting. I thought it was very interesting the what you called about. I don't know. I wrote micro learning. Micro credentials. Micro learning sounds worse. You're right. Micro credentials. And I really like the idea. It's definitely, you know, the way we are evolving, the way we are, you know, consuming knowledge and so on. I do find a small tension with the visa requirements, because typically the visa requirements are that you have, you know, a course that lasts at least 6 months and 15 hours. So I really love the idea, and I wonder how this could, you know, make sense for third country nationals who need a visa. But mostly my question would be about more something else that you mentioned. How we work with others to, you know, determine new programs and find out what we should do, you know, where we should recruit. So if you could just give us a bit more context about, you know, this bit of, you know, you all said it's important to kind of work together, a bit more on how you're approaching this to make sure, you know, you have the best outcomes possible.
I think we have to distinguish between the local market and the international market. So that is a very important we have to divide that. For the local market, as I said, and I agree with what Frank is saying, and this is also when we are creating our courses at the university, we also consult the industry. But I agree with you, it's not enough. I mean, because as we said, I mean, if a course takes 1.5 years in the industry, it's an eternity. So by then it will be expired. So yes, for the international market, I think it's different. I think we cannot confuse the two. When we're dealing with international students, I think it's important also to understand what happened in Malta. I mean, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, we used to look at other countries like Canada. We've mentioned Canada. They have a perfect model in Canada. Yeah. Because at that time the Canadians institutions they were offering the student an opportunity to study followed by an employment, and we used to envy them. We used to say they are lucky, and it's easy for the students because there is like an opportunity. And of course, Canada, we all know, I mean, to live in Canada is not as easy as it is to living in Malta. So we used to envy them, honestly. And then Malta nowadays, we are in that position. Because if you look at, it varies. I mean, we cannot use one size fits all, because it depends on the culture. Some of the students, they come here with the mentality of staying here. Some students, they come here intending to go back. But for the students who intend to come here and perceive Malta as an opportunity for them, or Europe, because not necessarily Malta, I think now we are in that position. And this is why we are seeing an increase in our interest. I mean, obviously there are challenges, there are visa challenges, which are important to mention, as you said, but the demand is increasing. And I think everyone can agree with me that the demand is increasing. And I think what is happening is that despite all our marketing efforts, what is selling Malta is the word of mouth. In education, and this is something that we've learned through experience, nothing beats the word of mouth. You can do the best presentations, you can do the best ads, you can have the best agents in the world, but it's the word of mouth that determines everything. And I think this is happening right now. And right now we are in the process of Malta is being discussed amongst the student communities. And we used to go to fairs, to student fairs, like 6-7 years ago. And we used to first have to sell Malta. But where is Malta? It's right next to it. But you're part of Italy, no. And then you have to explain that we got our independence in the 60s, and we are parts of the European Union. You're parts of the European Union. But nowadays, these questions, they are already answered. The students, they know about Malta. They know about the possibility of coming to Malta. I think in that case, the students then they are going to perceive it as they're going to look at the student experience and possibly what happens after they study.
So at the Skills Council, we do not distinguish between students and employees or persons that come to Malta. So perhaps I won't reflect as much as Frank and Mario on this side, but we were set up for the mandate to bridge the labor market, so industry, with the education side. So that is something that we've already been working on in terms of meeting with both education institutions and industrial partners. I would say on an individual level, but also at institutional level, or in terms of social partners. And there is a lot to be done. We share the opinion that the education does lag a little bit behind, but primarily the role of education is that of providing well-rounded citizens at the end of the day, and that of industry. They need to sit down and sit down with the education institutions, so those providing training and education, so that they actually help out and develop the required curricula, keeping in mind that the ultimate stand is with the education institutions because of their primary aim.
Just a small follow-up here. What are the main barriers for this? I mean, reasons why this might not be happening.
Time. I think the most quoted is time, and in Malta I do not believe it's a question of not knowing people, because we're a very small network, and I think if you don't know someone, someone you know will know that. So I think the most quoted reason is time, and however, we will need to find time. We are in the process of establishing sectorial groups, so we deal as a council with this issue. There was another point that I really wanted to mention, micro-credentials. No, it's fine. So micro-credentials are something that we have been talking about at EU level as well. And of course, I have to mention the Malta Further and Higher Education here that are involved in quality assurance, but also in qualifications and ECTS credits and the way these are structured locally. So yes, although for third country nationals, micro credentials might be or might not yet feature for that locally. They are they're a reality. We are quite advanced. We call them awards locally, but they are there and they're there to stay. We need to remember, because of the swift changes that are happening, most prominently in the digital world, but we also see a rise in the green transition, so it's increasingly gaining momentum. And the people, especially that are already working, do not have time to spend years, months and years in following a course. So these awards or micro-credentials are there to fill gaps, to upskill, to get the necessary skills to be able to operate in an agile way, so to speak. One perhaps last point that we reflect upon is that there is a shift from occupations to skills, and that shift is slowly and surely occurring, but whereas we still, when we speak about skills shortage, we refer to occupations many a time, there is an increasing trend to go for a skills first approach, so that we develop skills that we are ideally transferable, also the transversal skills have been mentioned in the introduction. So these have been increasingly being, the top skills that all of us need to have to be able to progress. This has resulted from SME Barometer, Malta Chamber Survey. So the attitudes, the adaptability, resilience, problem solving, these skills are emerging as being the skills that are needed for us to progress. And then, not that technical skills are not important, they will remain important. We need to still have the technical skills for specific jobs especially, but work and develop those skills as well.
Thank you.
For now.
Definitely, there is a need to strike a balance between education, educators, and the industry. I see it as a common agenda, not ours and theirs agenda. I mean, in education, we are responsible for active citizenship, employability, and the rest. But let's be frank. Let's be frank. I mean, we go to school, we learn, we grow as individuals, as citizens, but ultimately, we end up on a place of work. So we need the transversal and the technical skills during our journey. We need to fill that gap. And I would like to cite two good examples that the Institute for Tourism Studies has. One of them is that it is part of almost all its courses that students have to experience this, apart from the curriculum is designed and built together with the industry. Consultations with the industry is the norm. But it is part of of almost every course that students, they have to learn on the place of work. For example, my daughter, she is in her first diploma year at ITS. This is a coincidence. It wasn't planned that way. So diploma students, which is a two-year course, their first year is delivered here in Malta. Okay, they are very much encouraged to work part-time, etc. She works part-time as well. In her second year, she has to further her studies abroad in the industry. So this coming June, she will be leaving to Ireland, spending a whole year as part of her course training in her diploma course. So that is a good practice, which we do have very similar good practices at the University of Malta and at Ancast and in other education institutions. My recommendation is that of making this as the norm, not as the exception, or here and there. That is one good practice. The second good practice is that the training school, and here we are being very successful, we get a lot of requests from the hospitality and tourism industry to train their employees. And what we do, we hardly deliver off-the-shelf, ready-made programs. But what we do is we adopted an approach of visiting the hotel, for example, or the restaurant, or we sit down with the management, we discuss with, and we plan. They help us. They help us identify their expected learning outcomes, their needs, and we design our bespoke training specifically addressing their skills. And that's what makes the difference. They pay money when they pay money, because in Malta we have financial schemes for everything and we take it for granted. Okay, we take it for granted. There is the invest in skills scheme. So Jobs Plus, and there is a very similar scheme managed by Malta Enterprise. They pay the industry to train their employees. So I mean, and that is another good practice. And this brings me to my starting point. Good education is applied education. If it is not applied, it is irrelevant. It is irrelevant. And that is why universities worldwide, they are being seriously challenged, and they are seeing a decrease in their students. Because nowadays, universities, and there is signs of it, universities are also shifting from strictly academic, lecturing in lecturing some 200 students in lecture rooms. They are shifting, and this is a good sign, towards applied training, learning, and
Thank you. We are a bit short on time, so you can save your questions for the networking, because if not, we won't make it by 5. So I just have a very, very short question. Let's imagine it's Christmas. You can get a miracle related to one of your challenges in this team. What would change tomorrow for you, if you could, with a magic wand, change something?
You want me to be honest? You
Yes.
want me to be frank? I would do my best to remove all the obstacles that we find to recruit students from the international market.
This is regulatory obstacles.
Yes, I mean, because visa is becoming a big issue, we have to admit that. And as well, sometimes is if I have a magic wand, I would prefer to get good quality students, because Obviously, when you get quality students with the qualifications that are required, it's, you know that it's easier to recruit them, and that most probably they're going to stay here in Malta, they are going to give what they have learned back to the industry.
I think I'm going to take it from the other side, and I think most industry players would, so given that, okay, let me phrase it this way. I think we would like to have more quality human capital in Malta that want to stay here. So once they're here, after visa, that they get what their expectations are of living in Malta. So I think that holistically, as a society, would be able to, my wish is to get people who want to stay in Malta, to contribute to Malta's society, and be happy while living here. So in a well-rounded manner, and that would be, I think, my utopia, my wish.
I have many wishes. But one of my wishes is that of reverting back to 2013, when the government had the opportunity of establishing a new government. And one of them was dedicated to education and employment. It was one of a kind. Not only in Malta, in Europe it was one of a kind. Education and employment. During those 5 years, we managed to do a lot of work. We started bringing closer together education and industry. That is where MCAST bloomed. That is where new education institutions were established. That is when we've introduced new curriculum from the early years up to the upper secondary. That is where we came up with a first education strategy for Malta. That is where we came up with my journey, bringing all spheres of education under one roof, together. So, this is one of my wishes, of having a ministry, because in Malta politics is good. I mean, but that was a good sign, and that permitted a lot of good work. We did a lot of mistakes, but we did a lot of good work. We opened a lot of doors, and we started. So this is my wish. One of my wishes, actually.
Thank you very much to the panelists. So if tomorrow we remove all regulatory aspects that are challenging, like visas become available from everywhere, they're transparent, they're easy, we improve the quality of life so that people, and we have a political momentum that allows to take action, then, we can probably change some things. I don't think those wishes are, out of this planet. I think, they are goals we can work towards. So thank you very much, panelists. For being here. So we are a bit late. We will have a very quick 5 to 10 minute break. You have coffee over there at the back, and the bathroom is just across thank you everyone. En español. Gracias a todos. Vamos a tomar una pausa muy breve de unos 10 minutos y vamos a seguir con el segundo panel y las conclusiones. Muchas gracias. We had to change the battery.
I think now it's okay.
¿Tuvimos que cambiar la batería?
Unos hay que...
¿Conseguimos sacar cortos?
Sí, está ya, yo lo entregué.
¿Qué es lo que
Hay que devolver, no sé si...
Ya está, hay que viene que el privilegio.
then we finish at 5. Yes, yes, vamos a seguir con el segundo panel. Ahora hasta las 5. A las 5 concluiremos, quizás con 5 o 10 minutos de clase. Nada más que estamos esperando que...
Certo settore, ma io ma stesso no, vai ti sul negozio. No. La Russia sa, unita, che għandi servita gradualità, u vera, rawn ġib, bil-prattika ta' ġew u tal ġabu som il-licenza. Pero jiena infatti
So he wanted to, say...
What about the battery? Ooh, 37. So maybe it's better we get...
Hello, we're going to start the second panel. Yes, we leave the chair symbolically. You won't see it from there, but you can see it from the lights. Thanks. Okay, we've already had a very quick introduction. Joaquin is CEO of Studies, his event. I will pass the mic to Dr. Sherry and to Haro to introduce themselves.
Thank you for the invitation to be part of this panel. I'm Daniel Sherry. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Malta, specializing in English and academic communication. And I'm also the chairperson of the ELT Council. The ELT Council being a body within the Ministry of Education responsible for regulating Malta's ELT industry.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. First of all, I wanted to thank All Studies for organizing this wonderful workshop. My name is Alan Lofaro, the Director of Operations for Global Banking School. I've been, directing with international students for the past 24 years. I think previously I was specifically with the ELT Council. I used to work with the International Language School, and now I'm with Global Banking School that falls under the GEDU group, where we have the English part language school and also the Global Banking School, which is more of a higher education school.
Thank you. I might join you here, of course. Just to be closer. Okay, so we talked about a lot about the skills in Malta and what the issues are here. From your experience, what are kind of Malta's biggest advantages when people come here rather than other places, and how do you think that could be capitalized on for higher education or skills purposes so that they can contribute to the local economy?
Well, to base myself on my own experience and my own specialization, I think one of Malta's main advantages is the fact that we recognize English as an official language due to our colonial heritage. The majority of the population is bilingual, and we also have a multilingual workforce. Other advantages that I can see are the fact that we have, when compared to other countries, economic stability, and our economy has been growing over the years. We are also a country that has a solid educational system and plenty of opportunities for further and higher education and research opportunities. And Malta as a country also is quite open to business, or at least that's the way we talk about the country, and the government tries to attract business from elsewhere.
I think most of the points Daniel mentioned most of them. However, earlier on we mentioned the safetyness of the island, and maybe it's true that maybe Malta is not safe as it used to be back then, but I still believe that Malta is one of the safest countries in Europe. I mean, my partner is from Venezuela, and believe, safety is one of the key points in Malta. In fact, whenever we have agents coming here, predominantly from countries like Asia and Africa, the first thing they tell us is how safe your country is. You can walk by in Malta at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning without having any issues. So in my opinion, that is one of the USPs, that is valuable for students, but also for agents. I mean, we've mentioned the weather, we've mentioned the get qualified business first. I also think political stability plays an important role over here. The fact that we have a stable government, and after 5 years there's a democratic election, and we elect another government, and that from a business perspective gives that peace of mind to whoever wants to open a business here in Malta. I think one thing which we didn't mention earlier on is that Malta forms part of the Schengen area, where this gives access to 26 countries for international students to travel using the same visa. I mean, we have higher education students, but as I said, we also have English language students. That it's not uncommon for them that over the weekend they travel to Italy. Years as the top country within Europe when it comes to LGBTIQ rights, and that is something which we should all be proud of. Unemployment rate earlier on, Martin, you mentioned it's below 4%, to be accurate it's 2.67%, and that is a very important USP. In fact, every time we have webinars from prospective students that want to come here and pursue their higher education career, one of the questions is about jobs in Malta. And as soon as you mentioned that the unemployment rate is 2.67%, they remain astonished. And I honestly think that 2.67% is not because there's not enough jobs, but it's simply because people, either cannot work for health issues, or for example, like my partner that is taking care of a 5-month-old baby, then of course she's listed as unemployed. Cost of living, I still believe we're super competitive. I mean, even when we look at our prices when it comes to higher education, over here you can do a master's with half the price, if not even more, compared to other countries like UK. I mean, accommodation maybe the prices did go up in terms of accommodation, but I still believe, with 800 euros, 900 euros, you can find a decent flat just for yourself compared to UK, where with 1,200 euros, 1,300, you're just sharing a room. And of course, the career opportunities, study and work, where a few years back then, this wasn't allowed for international students to work. I'm pretty sure Daniel knows about this because back then, even English language students weren't allowed to work, and there was a big issue because students used to work illegally in Malta. And I remember back then, I had a case in front of me where a student worked for 2 months illegally. Then, out of the blues, the boss decided not to pay her alone, and she had no other option, because if she reports him, then she'll be in trouble, and probably everybody knows that kind of boss, so no action will be taken. So the fact that students now can work, I think that gives a very good advantage. I still believe there is a big question mark when it comes to higher education, because some entities can tell you that students can work up to 30 hours per week, but then when you apply for the work permit, you just get a 20 hours per week. So I think there is still like a question mark over there. But all in all, everything was mentioned earlier on as well.
Thank you, Joaquin.
Yes, so, well, it's a complete list that you have mentioned, but maybe to try to focus on something different, something that really catches the eye for me is the startup visa program, and this is something for a very niche type of student. In the previous panel, we were speaking about quality students, and of course you have entrepreneurs. I find myself as an entrepreneur, and the fact that the startup visa program only requires 25,000 euros of investment in order to qualify for residence makes it completely different from the rest of the countries. In other countries, the amounts of investments are much more higher for this type of residences. So, of course, I agree with everything that has been said, but I would say that the entrepreneurial life, especially for business students, right, this is something that can be very attractive. And then, while being in the island, you can see that there is a very important ecosystem populate the government institutions, other entrepreneurs, startups, a lot of opportunities. This year, the European festival is coming to Malta. That's something that really makes the scene thrive. So I would say doing a higher education program focused on business, if your aim is to be an entrepreneur, is something that is very, very interesting. You can do your business plan in something related to your own business, and then finally get some funds and start it. And Malta has a very unique advantage on that.
That's great, thank you. Yes, absolutely. The Malta is quite interesting. So the threshold for this kind of entrepreneurial visa is quite low. I remember when I got here, the requirements for investment for a Latin American were about very easy. We've been told by our accountant, you just need to invest €500,000, but it's fine. You just buy a house and the money stays there. Sure, but not everyone has that kind of money. So I think, yes, this is definitely, especially for business students, a very attractive incentive. And also the fact that there are a number of support schemes for new businesses in Malta, which are, fairly low-hanging fruit. In the previous panel we mentioned that, there are schemes for training and businesses get money to train their employees. So where there's a need, usually there is kind of this funding from the government. I thought it was very interesting how you mentioned that, before English students couldn't work. So maybe you can give us a bit of a perspective of how that change happened, if you were involved with the ELT Council, how did this conversation go with the government and different stakeholders, and how did that impact, the attraction of students, in your opinion?
I think Alan would be the best to answer that.
I think the fact that students can now legally work, and it's good to stress that legally, because as I said earlier on, the students were allowed to work, but they used to work illegally. I think that attracted different markets. That's why, in my opinion, we are seeing a lot of students coming from Latin America, because as you mentioned earlier on in your presentation, we could see that students coming from Colombia, especially, they come here for longer weeks. So if I look at the English language school that we have students coming here for 6 months, and then eventually they extend their stay and they stay here for 1 year. It's not the first time that I come to Valletta, for example, and I see my ex-students that are still here, because nowadays they found a job, and they fell in love probably with a Maltese guy as well. And this is how it should be. I'm happy when I see these things. I mean, I have nothing against third country national students coming here. As I said earlier on, my partner is from Venezuela, and it is thanks to these international students that we are proud of saying we have the strongest economy, for example, in Europe. This didn't happen because of change of government only, but this happened because we are now attracting international students to come here, studying, and we have to keep in mind one thing, that Malta is not a cheap place. It's still cheap compared to our other destinations, but the fact that students can now learn English or higher education and can work 20 hours or 30 hours per week, that gives them the flexibility to live a better life, to enjoy themselves. And interestingly to know that I have students even sending money back to their families back home. And that is something really good. I think even the fact that, for example, if we look at the higher education, because when we say students can work, we have the impression that in Malta the only jobs available are low-level jobs, either as a waiter or a cleaner or a barman or whatever, but this is not the case. I have students on both entities, whether it's English language school or higher education school, that they have been offered jobs in financial sectors, for example, in banking, in iGaming, in hotels, high top positions, like, for example, sales manager or reservations manager. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to give the impression that yes, you can come here and work, but please bear in mind that the jobs available here are just low-level jobs where you'll probably be earning 1,200 euros per month. There are very good opportunities, and I remember, back then when students initially were given the go-ahead to start working, it was thanks to the ELT Council that pushed this together with the local authorities in order to give us that competitiveness when compared to other countries, because back then other countries like Australia, for example, and Canada, students could already work there, and for us it was not possible back then. So yeah.
We're gonna give the mic back to Fix.
That's all well and good. However, now we're seeing sort of another challenge happening, the issue of visas. So when we look at the statistics for 2022, we see that in the English language teaching sector, which is a very important sector within tourism, we had around 57,000 students, 17,000 of whom were coming from non-EU countries. And the top 3 countries were Colombia, Japan, and Brazil. The issue now is that we're experiencing, or schools are experiencing, problems to actually continue recruiting non-EU students and third country nationals because of these issues. There seems to be this push to stop more and more students coming from outside of the EU in order for them to work, to study, and those of them who want to work can do so freely. So that is a big challenge that, at least in the ELT sector, is being experienced, but I believe it's also the case in further and higher education.
Yes, absolutely. Joaquin, do you want to add on to this?
Well, yes, and something that is also important that I mentioned during my presentation is the fact that many students migrate as a family, rather, there are couples or they have children. I'm talking about 25, 26, 27-year-old students that would be interested in the higher education program, maybe taking some English lessons before so they can pass an ELT exam, right? And I believe that the policies in Malta are not as well adapted as in other countries to cater for those families. And this is something that when we speak with the students, is a bit of a problem. So from the side of the regulations, that's an issue that would be considered as well.
Okay, thank you. And I was wondering, for me, I just mentioned earlier, there are a lot of potential synergies between kind of these 2 student groups, the language students and the higher education students. Sometimes they come with 2 plans. Very often, if they want to do, a university degree, they might need to skill up their English. There are some, requirements as to minimum levels and so on. So how do you see these 2 sectors kind of working together and collaborating in the future to kind of improve this, the crossover, let's say, of the customers?
Yes, if Malta wants to keep attracting further and higher education students from around the world, providing these students with English language support services is essential. It's something that the University of Malta does, and I believe other higher education institutions here locally. But besides that, I think what these students also require is support with academic communication and academic literacy. Something that is very, very strong, especially in the American context. And I work at the University of Malta, and that's something that the University of Malta has started working on as from this year. So that is something that we need to offer, because people coming to study in Malta from elsewhere, let's say China or the Gulf or other places, they don't just require support with their English language, but even with academic literacy.
Mm-hmm. And this academic literacy, is it something that is available for multi-students as well?
Yes. University, as part of this program that it has just rolled out, it's offering this to all university students. So it's not just something for students whose first language isn't English.
I think from our side, the fact that we have both the English language school and higher education course, I think this is something we do on a weekly basis, where we try to push those students that are on the English language school for a further higher education course. I mean, recently we've been also accredited by the MFHEA, and we have our own homegrown courses which are at level 4. And the idea is to push students from the English language school to these level 4 courses, mainly on the IT subject, but also management, with the eventual progression to a level 5 course, which we have, and then 6 and 7. You've mentioned visas, Daniel, and I think I must add something here. We've recently had a meeting with Central Visa Unit, and back then in October, when we had our first intake, the visa refusal rate was around 36%, if I remember well. And a week ago, or a week and a half ago, we got the information that visa refusal rate from countries like Asia and Africa shot up to 96%. And for us, being a private higher education school, where predominantly our market is an international market where we depend on international students. That gave us a huge blow. What I can say is that from these countries we had a total of 107 students and only 7 students got their visas. And this means refund, this means bad word of mouth, because let's keep in mind that the students which are here, which I'm happy to have five of our students, you know, coming from India, for example, they speak with each other, you know, and as soon as they see that to come here it's impossible, they start talking. So as you mentioned earlier on, the best marketing is the word of mouth, but I don't think we are doing that good when it comes to visas. I think that policies needs to be clear. One needs to involve the stakeholders rather than taking decisions behind closed door and then they are just communicated through schools. I'm happy to have the ERT representative here because they are at the moment supporting us, because maybe for some of you don't know, but even for students from Colombia, Brazil, for example, Peru, Venezuela, there's going to be a change as well in visas, and it is thanks to the ERT Council that they support us as English language schools. And I think for further higher education schools, there should be someone like the British Council, for example, which unfortunately we don't have here, but that supports private institutions. I mean, here the council are fighting on a daily basis, number one, to make things clear from the beginning, but also to remove the bureaucracy that currently there is when it comes to visas.
Thank you, Joaquin.
Yes, so regarding to just as mentioned, I would like to bring an example from Canada, from the Quebec region. We have pathways that are very clearly established between language schools and higher education schools that apply for just one type of visa. So it's something that we've been discussing, right? And the possibility for the students to have a clear pathway, including English course with the full application, treated as a higher education, because the English is the academic English on top of that. And also, what we see is that there are lots of students that go to Canada. So Canada is a country where English students cannot work, right? So they go there for the language. So in the language, they go for the French language. And they know they can't work, but while they go there, they fall in love with the country. This is something that happens also with English students coming from Malta, for sure. And the schools organize, English schools or French schools, language schools, organize meetings and open doors with content. So these language students that cannot work have the ability to meet the job market, to know more about the job market and meet potential employers, and then they go back to their countries, but they come back to Canada with a very clear idea of doing a higher education program to go to one of these companies that they already met. And in some cases, this is something that's very attractive. So, just answering the question that Martin was asking about the bridges that one could have between language schools and higher education schools, I think that in Malta it's easier because there's the ability to work while we're studying, and this is something that would be, more of a joint effort in order to present what are the opportunities for the students. Then again, I am completely in line with what Alan just mentioned. The regulations are one of the biggest threats for the market. In Canada, it happened last week, and the news that we're getting from Malta, I mean, this is not something new. The previous years, so we've been working here, there have always been changes on the regulations, and for the students, this means some uncertainty, and they would prefer destinations that offer more certainty. So the effort that the ERT Council is doing to provide certainty are super important, and I hope that there will be clarity, even if this new process is going to be in place. At least the process should be in place for a long time and not have a lot of changes in the way. Because word of mouth is super important, I agree with you, and students get pretty nervous when they see what is happening, and something that is the behavior that students have at least for Malta, is that they go to social network groups where they ask questions, and these questions are addressed by people who have no knowledge or just say things because they think that they know something. Sometimes it trying to help, sometimes it's not trying to help, or the contrary, and it creates a lot of chaos and confusion because the information at the end of the day is not very clear. And so it's this part of regulations plus how we convey the message to the students is very important. This is where I believe that our sector, the recruitment agency sector, plays a crucial role by being very responsible about the type of communications that we need to give, and also this is why we need to have this clear communication streams with the government. So because we are very important stakeholders in this. The vast majority of the students are recruited by the recruitment agencies. So being present in the country, being accredited, and having the right information from the right stakeholders all the time allows us to temper that chaos and to ease the problems that are generated by the confusion and the lack of information. So this is part of the role I believe we can play proactively, and we're trying to play as an active player in Malta.
Thank you, Joaquin. Yes, yes, of course.
I think, just to give you an example, because our group, apart from having a school in Malta, they have schools in UK, Ireland, Canada, Florida, Germany, Paris, and also in Dubai. In Dubai, the visa process, for example, is pretty straightforward. I mean, a student just wait for 1 week decision time, and a visa is given or rejected. Over here, it takes more than 12 weeks for a student to get a visa. And I agree completely with Joaquin. I mean, I'm in favor of checks and balances, and I believe there should always be checks and balances when it comes to visas. What I don't like is that we are given instructions that this change in visa is going to apply as from May onwards, when we already have students that paid and booked for May, and all that this has done was creating chaos, especially after an article in a local newspaper was published last weekend. I remember as soon as we went back to work on Monday, the amount of emails, calls from agent students, and also in-house students, coming to the offices and questioning what's going to happen with them. So I think, in my opinion, that's why I fully support what the Health Council are doing, because they want to have everything clear, everything black on white, and then that information is shared online with the relative stakeholders.
Yes, absolutely. This is super important, and I was thinking as well as to the roles of of course the LT Council and kind of advocating for all of this, but as well of the schools and the higher education institutions, and also facilitating not only these things, but as we heard from our student testimony, when she did her master's, the school didn't really facilitate kind of this local development of the networks and so on to increase the employment chances. So I think the one side the regulation that everything is clear, but also on the other side to kind of support this development is very important and something that the students expect. We are a bit late, so I will do the same question as the first panel. So it's Christmas, you can have you can change one thing. What would you change to make your life easier and to make your sector more successful?
Well, to latch on to the discussion that we're having, and perhaps to be truly open to business as a country, and to be more transparent in our regulations and the way we implement them.
I think Daniel is perfectly right. If I just wanted to add something, is less bureaucracy and clear communications with all stakeholders. That's all from my end.
Yeah, amazing.
So far it's kind of let's get out of our own way, because these complications are regulatory. There are countries where things work and work simply. It's I think something I haven't spoke, which I try to say in every conference. It's very important to have a shared vision. So where are we going all together as a country? We got here very different stakeholders from the private sector, from the public sector. Pretty much everyone agrees on the diagnostic and kind of where things should go. So, I think here we have something, the right direction, we know where it is. It's a matter of, coordinating more amongst the actors and hopefully, finding these ways into the government's ear. Joaquin.
Yeah, for me it would be very straightforward regarding visa processing, and I would say my wish is to have an online application such as Dubai has it, where you just send your documents by email and you get your visa on the floor, or Canada. You apply everything online, then you just send your passport via DHL or something like this. That would be really, really, really good, and an open visa process, very clear. So all countries, I'm not talking about Latin America, I'm talking about all countries, can know that if they meet the requirements, they will get the visa. Right? This is my wish.
Thank you very much to the panelists. I will do a very, very short conclusion. You can return to your seats, and we'll continue and I think we need to turn the TV back on just for my last few slides. So, less bureaucracy and more simple things. I recently ordered my this for the students here. This might be useful. I think it's called the European Health Card. Basically, it's fantastic. You go to a website online, you enter with your EID, and 5 days later, it's at your home. And when things like this work, you say, okay, so we can apply this process to other sectors, and I'm very hopeful that this is the case, because there are some things that work quite well. So we were saying Malta, for me, it's already building on a very strong base. We already have this kind of attraction power, bringing thousands of students every year. There is, we mentioned, a problem with retention. As we saw, the problems with retention very often are linked to quality of life issues. We all know it. Overdevelopment and traffic. This is our main problem with the island. I have to give the counterpart to this for me, which is that things are close. Of course, I'm a foreigner. I live in kind of the Gzira and Siena area, so all my friends live 10 minutes away from here. And I can say this is going to be one thing that I'm going to miss so much in Malta, and it's something that, I have such a quality of life. It takes me 30 minutes to go to work, and when I want to see a friend or go to the beach, it's 10 minutes away. It's fantastic. So there are a lot of things that Malta can sell, how it can position themselves. We saw that the main barriers are regulatory. There are a lot of opportunities. Mainly we saw that the barriers are regulatory. There is also a part about how the offer is adapted to what the students are looking for, how Malta is positioning themselves in kind of the international market. So we're not going to compete with Canada on quality of education, but we can offer something else, something different. And here, I encourage you to consider the whole student journey. As Karina was saying, she was expecting to get support, to get employment, to get connected to local employers, and she didn't really get that. She was able to do it on her own, and for sure, that's you develop new skills. You have to be entrepreneurial and go ahead and speak with people in your second language or third language. It's not easy. But it's possible, and I think something very important as well is this quality of life issues. I think a very nice measure, for instance, was the free public transport. In Malta, there is free public transport for all residents. I know most of the Maltese people here will have a car and will not use the bus, but still, for me, I don't own a car. If I want to come to Valletta, I just take the bus from Sida. Now it's free. It's not much, but it's something, It's
Even
something
ferry.
that adds to,
And you can get the ferry as well, so you can just,
take the ferry as well,
instead of a
absolutely.
bus, you get a boat.
It's a lot of, but for these things to change, here we've had, a number of stakeholders here today. There are many more stakeholders in the sector. I think there's 30-something schools, English schools, about a dozen higher education providers, as well as the public institutions and so on. But basically what, we need to do somehow, and I think Alan said it very well, is that the higher education sector doesn't have this kind of lobbying institution, which would be the ELT Council, which defends the interests of the language schools. And I think to transition to this kind of more coherent rules for higher education, maybe something for sure there is need to have a more coordinated push between the actors and the sectors. And here I think it's very interesting because, as I said, I think there's kind of this natural convergence between the existing market of ELT students and the higher education part. So the obstacles are policy regulations oriented, the barriers. There's barriers to entry. So you think 100 students that were coming to Malta, they were going to pay tuition fees for several thousand euros, they were going to pay rent every month, they were going to go to the supermarket and so on. It's it's quite a lot of money that they bring to the country. And of course, it's a perfectly legitimate thing to study and work in another country. So it's a shame that the criteria is not clear because, like we said, the word of mouth travels quickly. And this is the kind of thing that the next person, they will not even consider Malta. They will not consider Malta because they just think it's not possible. I had the personal experience with a student from Mali. Here, you give it back to me. A student from Mali who traveled to Algeria, and the concurrent consulate in Mali was France, and they weren't delivering visas because of the French policy. So she went to Algeria. In Algeria, where the concurrent Maltese consulate was, she was told, no, actually, we cannot do anything for you. I mean, we could authorize the visa procedure from CVU, but we don't want to. So this is a loss for Malta, I think, because it's very interesting economically. It allows to like you said, there is a 1.4 children per woman on average, I think, well below the replacement threshold. So we need people anyway in Malta. So you might as well have kind of a very predictable way of bringing them here. So there are synergies between ELT and higher education. There is traction in attraction. So we get the people here, but how long can we keep them here? And very often there are these issues with quality of life, which are as well applied for Maltese people, Maltese youth who want to go abroad because they feel things are a bit hectic and it's affecting how happy we are. So I think this is kind of a very broader changes that Malta might have to have in the future. Also, it's a good it's a good diversification. So there's a very Dr. Sherry said, the English is one of the major subcomponents of the tourism sector, which is the most important sector in Malta, and higher education could also become something similar. And the conclusion is that the skill gap is here to remain. It's not completely new, but it's kind of accentuating. So yes, so we need to kind of develop very specific instruments. So something like Get Qualified is good, but what are we going to do about accountants? For me, that's I tried to sell it. I worked with Boom Studies for some time. I tried to sell accountancy courses, and even when you say to people you will be employed, and after you do your second degree in accountancy, you will earn close to 2,000 euros, and you will have work because there are 200 vacant positions that are not filled every year. And still like that, I had trouble selling the course. Granted, accountancy is maybe not the success profession, but for people who have this kind of migratory project, very often that's enough to have kind of this security, of employment, and then you can study something else that you're interested in and so on. So, there are a lot of difficult questions to answer. So how is a career that has 100% employment rate and fairly good salaries is difficult to sell to international students. So, there are also reflections of very specific instruments. And I think, at the end of the day, and hopefully this is one of the things that we wanted to contribute today, is kind of contribute to this dialogue and that it make it happening between the different stakeholders. We agree, on most of things, and it's just a matter of how we work together to, present things to the government. Okay, now, the part we've all been waiting for. So I wanted to do something a bit special, so I went and got wine from the very nice little wine shop La Culture in Siena. And I asked for a recommendation. I don't know my wine so well. So today we have a bit of cheeses, a bit of manchego, and a bit of comté. We have Grand Vin Rouge, Casbon, very fine Bordeaux with aging in 5 different barrels. So I was very curious about this. We'll see how that works. And I've been told this Malakost Blanc, slightly woody mineral, works well with the cheeses. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for joining us today. Maybe I think our social media team wants to take a photo. I don't know.
Yes.
Like this?
With everyone, yeah.
Would that
She
be
can
okay?
go there.
In Uruguay, we say whiskey. Kind of work. Whiskey. Thank you very much. Thank you. Muchas gracias a todos por venir. Espero que hayan disfrutado. Y bueno, nos vemos en el próximo evento. Adiós.